thank you for being here. As you saw, I just turned on the recording button so that way we can actually capture what is going to transpire here for those who are not able to join us live. And then I am just in the process of setting it up to stream live to Facebook as well. So if anyone is able to share this onto your page or a group that you feel would find this valuable, I'm experiencing a shadow ban, which means that I'm not having a lot of my stuff put out there, which is no surprise. And so a lot of us who have the desire to be part of something like what is going to be taking place today are ultimately going to be in a similar camp, which is why we have wanted to gather the ones who are willing to take a stand. And not just take a stand for ourselves, which really matters, but ultimately take a stand for what it means to be part of community, for what it means to bring the sacred back into the moment, what it means to lead inner peace, to actually have it and to lead from that space, to not have to say I am peaceful, but to actually proclaim it with our presence. And so today, in this gathering of hearts, minds, and souls, Richard E. Gordon, CEO Dojo, and I will be leading this meeting, and yet it is an opportunity for you who have got yourself here in the virtual room to be able to contribute to. So we have a chat box if you don't feel able to speak what is on your heart and would prefer to write that down, please feel free, and we absolutely will read those comments to bring your contributions into this space. And then we will also open up the floor for others to contribute what these offerings mean to you and for you. And then, as always, we ask, what will you do with them? Because as much as an event doesn't change anyone's life, because within 48 hours, we lose more than 75% of what input we received if we don't apply it. What we're really asking is for you who desire inner peace to continue plugging in and to continue speaking up and asking for what you want and for what you need. And to, instead of going down all of the conspiracy theories and the rabbit holes associated with those things that create so much chaos and disruption in our energetic field that we really don't even know sometimes where to go from here, I believe that it's an opportunity for us to dream the dream of the new world together. And that is why in this first recorded, second official Peaceful Inner Warriors United Summit, Richard and I will be giving us all an opportunity to consider some of these insights in relation to being in relationship without losing ourselves, especially during stressful times when we potentially as empaths, which generally speaking, those of us who care tremendously, it's because we feel other people. And especially as we go into the holidays and in America, celebrating the holidays. So thank you, Richard, for giving up this precious time to be here to contribute in a bigger way than your own nuclear family. And I feel like that is a really great place to start in the traditions that exist and where we currently are. So, Richard, based on what I've just shared, how would you call everyone present into this space? And
absolutely, as always, you phrase things very well. They come from the heart. So it's easy to follow you because you cover lots of key points. And the thing that I'm going to tune into is very key, and it's key of what you and I discussed yesterday. I've been a leader for my whole life in business and in the martial arts business and in my family, home, and in church. But to me, the concept of lead is not that you stand in the front and you crack the whip. So with this concept, we are leading this, but in the sense, we are just bringing people together. We're conduits. So the leadership, and people know that and study that leader and leadership has lots of dynamics, but most times people get so caught up in the one little dimension that the leader is the boss and he's cracking the whip on the sled. But no, in this sense, we truly are looking at the leading to get the people together, and we're just conduits. And we're looking to not only learn, but to stimulate ourselves and other people. And so that's the essence of this. So it's not we're going to just talk at each other for 30 minutes, because that, as Laura was talking about relationships, that's not a relationship. And unfortunately, we've gotten there. The computer and the internet has gotten where people feel that they can talk at somebody and they're going to overwhelm them with facts or knowledge and convince them. And they're not. So this is not that space. We're all here to exchange ideas, agree, disagree, all the above. And the disagreements bring in new knowledge or new thoughts. Again, maybe not change someone's thoughts, but they're going to say, hey, I didn't think of it that way. And then you weigh it and say, I'm still going to see it this way. But that's the beauty of an interaction like this.
Absolutely. And a story I actually wanted to share, which I had this in a group when I was first out of university, and I was taking a mastermind group on Think and Grow Rich. And I was learning a lot of the concepts that now I teach on. And I had printed this particular page off for a Time to Think group that I was running, where this teaching that Tim Wheatley and I actually did last week on the summit we did for inner child and inner peace within the child within. And so I feel like it's a token of how everything that we do leading up to now and everything we have done all leads us where we need to be. So I brought the paper just as a trigger and to remind me to start out by sharing the story of the Canadian goose. And the Canadian goose flies in a pack, obviously, or they fly in a V shaped. And I feel like it's very significant that it's the V, because right now we as a people have an opportunity to choose which wolf we will feed. And why it's so important that the V is the letter or the symbol is because we have a chance to actually be victorious and to let the light win within us and the fight that goes on within. And the Canadian goose story, or the Canadian geese story, is the fact they fly in a V, and the leader cuts the wind for the ones who come behind, and everybody's wind gets cut for the one that's behind them. And in time, that leader gets tired of being up front and pushing all of the wind and doing all of that work. And so they, without having to say anything, or maybe they honk and let somebody know they're moving, but essentially they fall out of formation and then someone else fills the space. And it's a continual filling of space, which is what's going to happen today too. In terms of, sometimes it will be Richard or myself or Tim or Robert or any of the people who are here in this moment. We will be the one that moves to the front to cut the wind, and we'll all fly point and support the one who is in front leading in that moment. And understand that every single one of us has value. Every single one of us have went through what we did in order to be able to cut wind for the ones who are flying behind us, who are maybe going through a dark time in their lives, that maybe are going through the darkest time in their entire lives. And we can say, you know, I can't go into that dark cave with you, because the hero must always find themselves alone. And yet we can be the cheerleaders that stand on the side of that valley and offer shouts of celebration and encouragement, despite not necessarily being able to see the one who we are cheering for down below, because it doesn't matter what we can see, it matters what they can hear. And so I offer the stage to the one who feels that they have a contribution as part of this summit for inner peace, to actually contribute what you believe it means to be a peaceful inner warrior, and to take some time now together to understand, without necessarily having to share your perspective if you don't feel comfortable, because sometimes it's difficult to take the stage. And yet I feel it's very important for us to understand what it means to be a peaceful inner warrior. And I can start by sharing, and if you have a contribution and you want to raise your hand in order to let us know that you would like to speak, by all means do. And for me, the peaceful inner warrior definition and description really comes from an acronym that I came up with while writing what I always refer to as the book that rewrote me before the world got to see the version that you'll see once I actually write the thing that rewrote me first. And so with the peaceful inner warrior acronym, the part I'd like to start with, since it's very much about going within in this experience in order to create a reflection of that on the outside too, is the acronym for inner, being individual needs necessitate emotional resilience and resonance. To understand that the reason we must dream a new dream together is because we are co-creative beings by nature who are manifesting that which we focus on, regardless of whether it's what we don't want or whether it's what we want. Our energy is directing, or our attention is directing the flow of energy. And so we really need to be mindful that we are like radio transmitters, sending out frequencies. And that is done through our thoughts, which are then received by the grand overall designer that you refer to as the creator or God or Allah or whatever you refer to as the creator of all that is, whatever box you put God into. Let that be what we see as what receives that transmission we've sent from the radio transmitter that is us to then be returned to us through the form of experience. People, places, things, nouns. That's what ultimately delivers what we asked for. And it doesn't necessarily show up in the way that we thought that it would, which is what oftentimes triggers the lower level emotions of downward spirals of feeling that start with boredom and then creep all the way down to depression and powerlessness because we feel we have no control over the things that showed up and the way that those things showed up, because sometimes we get so attached to how things show up that we can't actually receive them when they do. So God has to go through a different back door in order to get that thing that they tried to serve to us on the platter to us, because we rejected that because it wasn't in the shape or form that we thought that it should be. So understand our inner reality is a reflection of the thoughts that we think, the beliefs, which are the thoughts we've repeated enough to create a system of beliefs or BS that then become paradigms, which are like cities of ideas that all work together. And so if we can understand the inner aspect and also understanding that contentment is the experience just above boredom. But contentment is what starts us into the upward spiral of positivity, all the way to freedom, possibility, love, passion. And when we reach to that space, we are uninhibited. We are not limited by what we thought we needed to be in order to be enough, because we find out that underneath of all of those veils of expectation, we always were enough. We always will be enough. And even in those moments where we don't think we are enough, that's when we need the ones around us who believe in us enough for us to say, maybe I can. And we can borrow the belief that somebody that believes in us has in order for us to be willing to venture into those darkest parts of ourselves to actually get back to the journey, which is to find passion, enthusiasm, authenticity, clarity, encouragement, and find your tribe. Understand what's important to you authentically. Not everyone else, but the real you, the one that was underneath of all of those veils. And to let go of your attachment to the not now moments of the things you thought you needed to be or where you needed to be or what you needed to do. You don't have to earn your enoughness or your worthiness, because you are enough by birthright. And the moment that we can remember that, the moment we can call ourselves back present into that truth, We return our power to the moment and can love what arises, understanding all of it is happening for us. Nothing is happening to us. All of it is here to serve us, even the things that terrify us and make us think that we can't do it. And sometimes we don't make it. And oftentimes in those moments, it was the part of us that we thought we needed to be that dies. And the one that survives, because each of us, no matter how dark our darkest days have been, we've made it. We've made it here, and I say congratulations to each of us, and a big pat on the back too, because we've all been through a tremendous amount, and we've veiled over a lot of parts of ourselves that we didn't think were good enough, which last week in the Inner Child Peace Summit Tim and I led, we went into the inner kingdom, to the beach. Tim led us through a process where you can actually go and meet the inner child within, who is part of the inner familial team. Understand that to be in relationship with anyone else, we are first and foremost in relationship with ourselves.
Anybody have any thoughts on that? Resonate with any of those? Lots of concepts there. I think the big picture and the big start is self. You know, we all know that, but how many times do we get strayed by the noise? Again, you can nod your heads, put your hands, or put things in the comment. You know, how many of you have been strayed from your true self? You know, and that could be anything, because it happens. You know, we all think we're strong, we're focused, but life happens, and the craziness of life is it has to not be designed that way. It's kind of almost a backward sentence, but life is not designed to be a straight path. As much as we as humans we try to live life in this straight burrowhead path that we're gonna, you know, go to school, go to college, or whatever our path is, go to school, get a job, get a career, get a family. We try to carve out this path entrenched, and life is never that. So that's one of the key lessons that we have to learn, that it's never going to be that. And with that, what happens, and what happened in my life, is you get distracted because you're trying to stay true to this unrealistic path, you know, and then you come up with almost falsities. Not that you're being false, but we try to impress our peers. We try to impress someone that we're courting. We try to put our best foot forward. So again, there's nothing wrong with that, but we often take it to the extreme. You know, depending on the crowd we're with, depending on who we're with, we're trying to impress them. If you're dating and you meet someone's parents, what are you going to do? You're going to put on your best suit, your best shirt. You're going to put in your best behavior, which again, nothing wrong with your best, but oftentimes we cross that line and we kind of reinvent ourselves to make them happy, especially if they're a little bit different. Again, relating to my story, I was raised very Catholic, very raised in New York City, and I dated a girl who was Jewish and very Jewish. So those are the two elements which put us on polar opposites. She's very wealthy. I'm very blue collar. Our parents have been married for many, many years. My dad passed away, so my mother was a widower. So literally on every spectrum, we were different. Our family didn't drink. My family's alcoholic. So we were madly in love. We dated for 8 years. And so with that, I found myself reinventing myself to become a completely different person for the better. A lot of stuff was to improve, but I really turned around one day and I said, wow, I kind of moved a real long way away from who I am. And so that's what I look when I work, I coach and mentor people. So how many of you have been in that situation where you kind of, whether it's a friend group or even pressure from your parents or relatives or a job, the job says, well, you need to be an engineer, you be a salesman, and all of a sudden you're pulled in that direction, but you're really not a sales guy. You don't want to be. So collectively, anybody, have you felt being pulled by some sort of outside force? Don't all shout out at once.
Hi. Yeah, that was definitely one of the things that happened for me. I mean, my path of counseling and therapy and working with a lot of patients, and there was a point where I was getting influenced to change and get a regular job. And as it was I took a job at a warehouse that I hadn't done for 15 years before. And as soon as I did, about a month in, I suffered a severe concussion. And it really has made me go back and reiterate there are consequences to our actions, and there are consequences if we don't follow what's true to us.
Correct.
And part of what what you were saying on that dating concept and putting our mask of who we're really not. And there are a lot of people that I'm dealing with on a different level that are out there as leaders and coaches, and a coach needs a coach, and a leader needs a leader, and a therapist needs therapy. And a lot of these people that have a beautiful, authentic part to them when they speak. It's not that they're inauthentic. They are presenting authentically, but they still have some of these components and that come up to the surface every once in a while. And right now we're having to address our fear versus love mentality. Like Course in Miracles says, either fear or love, what's it going to be? And the messengers hunt for what it is that they're going to find. And right now, every single time we turn on Facebook, we turn on TV, we turn on our favorite TV show, everything is now coming across with a sense of fear, which locks out that peaceful state of mind. And I was discussing this earlier with somebody that, the other day, first thing I did, I turned on the Facebook and I started looking through. I was specifically going for one group, and then ended up going down the wormhole and go, whoa, no, I'm not going there today. And I think part of what, as creating this peaceful inner warrior, I believe we got to create the ritual, the sacredness, the truth, and the routine in our morning, so that, like they say, breakfast is the best meal of the day. It's supposed to get you going. And if we don't feed that inner peacefulness in the morning, I think that fear will have a lot to feed off of in society right now. So I'm trying to come up with right now with the way of doing this, the inner peacefulness morning ritual as well. And that's even difficult for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And the fact that you acknowledge that is the beautiful thing, because as you know, you work with people that are a success, and the more successful people become, unfortunately, the more they feel that they have to be perfect. And again, that comes from society, Facebook and media and ads and movies. It's like this image. If you're a leader, you have to be perfect. And unfortunately, people buy into that. I did it as well. When I first became successful, I thought I had to be successful and perfect, and I couldn't misspeak, and I couldn't jaywalk, and I couldn't do all these things, which, again, yes, you should hold yourself accountable, but we can't stray away from what's inside us, because we're not perfect. And we just have to stress how we're perfect. Like you said, get mentors, get leaders, and work with groups to say, okay, I tend to get, angry real quick, and then work on that. But don't act like you don't have that in your life because you're a great leader. It's like you have to, and people will admire you more. And we've known that in this just generation of our awareness. We've realized that if people come forward and say, hey, I grapple with this, I smoke, I speed, or whatever, and it's like, okay, we get it. We're understanding that. And so I think we've come a long way with society, but then there's the other, like you're talking about, the conflict. There's still the pull that this is what you need to look like. This is what you need to act like. This is what you need to talk like. And so, yes, we have to develop inner strength. And I've been a martial arts instructor and participated for 40 years. And so initially it was physical. And then I realized that's very limited. So I worked on the interior strength, the interior warrior, because that's truly the fight we have to win. And again, all the movies and books depict it if you really delve into it. But again, the flashy stuff is what catches, the swords, the combat, the hitting, the crush, the kill, destroy. And so that's an easy sell. And even when I was marketing my business, I didn't say, come train with me and we'll sit in the training area and we'll sit on pillows and, delve into the inner peace. That's not really a great marketing tool for that kind of business. But I was able to use that form and say, yes, in order to be a good combatant warrior, you need to develop interior meditation, like you said, routine. My morning routine for my life has been to meditate, to pray, to get in touch with myself, in touch with nature. And so, yeah, that's where I talk about the be you for you, because people ask me about, like, what's advice you would give your younger self? And I'm like, wow, be you for you. And if I could have known that long ago, then again, my life is what it is. But again, I feel that lesson is very important, that you stay true to yourself, and then help other people within your family and your community stay true to themselves, and grow your tribe accordingly. That's again collectively what we're trying to do here. Is everybody's going to bring an individual talent. We're not all the same, and that's the beauty. Is we're all collectively different, which to me I love. I love when you bring people together that are collectively different, because that is when learning starts. That's when true relationships begin. So that's in essence of the greatness of Be You for You. And so, yeah, bring yourself here. But great points, Tim.
I absolutely love too about the need for a practice, because every warrior has a training practice. And in the program I'm going to be launching at some point, that I feel like needs to be in December, simply because we really do need that practice. And I outlined a formula for one called the special practice that can actually go into the sacred sojourn of the soul through transformation and transforming our self-image and the way we see ourselves in relation to the world, our immediate environment, and people in general, and even ourselves. And a lot of that comes from way before we even got here. Like 50% of our beliefs are said to be developed by the time we were born, and then we take on the rest of it. So life is actually more about unlearning than it is about learning anything new. So instead of thinking we need to do all of these things specifically, it's like, what if we just set ourselves up for success by actually just creating a practice? That it's like, do this, make it part of the habit, which is what nuns wear as their garb, and just wear a habit and put that into our morning. It's like Robin Sharma has the 5 a.m. club, where you get up at 5 a.m. and start your day, and you fit fitness in there to move the vessel. And then you do reading and you do journaling, because that's like having a therapist on paper that you can go back to and coach yourself through later. But if we are not doing these things that get what's inside out, then we are not mastering our emotions. And our emotions ultimately, when not mastered, master us, or really school us and help us understand what part of us is really running the show. And it's usually the tantruming 2-year-old within that is really upset that things aren't going the way that they want. And so then they take it out and bleed all over people that didn't cut them. And so with the holidays coming up, if we can have a practice of coming together, and next Tuesday, actually, December 1st, from 7 till 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Tim and I will be doing the next Inner Child Peace Summit. So would love to have you as part of that, and to bring friends and bring more people and understand these are safe spaces, because disrespect is not tolerated here. And the people that would have the heart to come to one of these are not that way inclined anyway, you would think, or you would hope. But ultimately, nothing can be taken for granted right now, I don't think. Right now, we're having freedoms and liberties taken away left, right, and center, and some people aren't saying anything. And right now, what we need is to wake the warriors up within to say, okay, you don't get back things that are taken away by an abusive parent. We really need to actually build the strength within ourselves to know what we stand for, or we risk falling for the BS that is being propagated to us like never before in humanity's history. And we are the souls that came here to be on the leading edge of building the new world. And there is an agenda for a new world order, and then there is the agenda that we the people choose. And while the government may be the one in power right now because we've given them the power and they've taken advantage of it largely, and others not, and by all means, there are many great politicians, and there are many great corporate leaders, and there are many people that are involved in what is happening right now that truly feel like they're doing the best that they can to simply save their own ass, because right now we're all about to fry unless we actually step up, I believe. And I know that may sound triggering, and what I would encourage you is to pay attention to what just happened to your body when I shared something fearful. Because what I would encourage us all to be aware of is that excitement and fear register the same way in the body energetically. The body doesn't understand the difference between standing on the edge of a mountain and applying for a new job or going for a challenge that really would stretch and grow you. The body processes the level of fear the very same way as if we're in a deadly situation, or one that the one within that's looking at this situation saying, I'm completely unprepared. No, stop, don't do it. And just trying everything they can to sabotage us from actually taking that stand and stepping up and saying, well, you know, there's people that are hired for that. Like, I can just mind my own business and do my own thing in my own life. And it's like, yes, and if you're in your own life and I'm in my own life and everybody here is in their own life, and one of us who are in our own little life goes missing, how do any of us know unless we actually are coming together regularly enough to actually notice?
And great points. And what you touch on is so significant, because the way to stop any creative movement, the dark ages, you stop people's voices, you silence them, whether it's art, whether it's literature, whether it's music, any sort of voice people have, it's silence. And then again, you have the dark age, and we've had versions of the dark ages. We've had periods where we had great creativity. We've had periods where there was not a lot of great creativity. And that's the essence of that. And looking at that, your voice, and looking at your impact in relationships. And we always look at the relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, marriage, but there's also the relationships that we are responsible for. It's not as much now because of COVID, but even still, when we go out, we get our morning coffee, we encounter a clerk, we encounter a person in line, we go to the grocery store, we encounter a lovely grocery clerk, right? And so how we act to these people that we encounter, be it all brief, makes a ripple effect. So when you act nice to the person at the counter at Starbucks or wherever you go for coffee, then they kind of take that. They might not acknowledge it, they might not even be aware because they're busy, but it definitely has a ripple effect. And so now 10, 20 people do that. Guess what happens at the end of the day when she goes home, maybe to her kids, her family, to her life? She's already been rippled with people being kind. And so I always try to do that when I go out, and especially when I travel with friends, because you're busy, you're talking, and it's really easy. Again, I've been guilty of it, but I always consciously make it. It's easy to just ignore that person. You walk in, you balk out your order, you slap your $5 down, you slap your card down, and they're like totally insignificant to you and your friend in your conversation, or you're on the phone. And so that's the relationships that we need to look at. You could be out running and you pass someone that's running, and you literally, people will block off their energy. I find that so amusing. To me, that's a lot of effort, right? When someone just run by you, or they walk by you, or they're in the elevator with you, and they put up this shield of no energy. And I look at them, and I'm like, oh, that's a lot of effort to do that. And you're actually doing that because I walked in the elevator. I'm not menacing. I'm not feared. I shouldn't provoke fear in you, but I get it. I accept, be me for me. They have to be them for them. But I look at the flip side, that when I get in the elevator, whether I talk or not, I want to send some energy. I want to send some positive relationship for that 2-minute ride. Because guess what? Those are the minutes that build up to life. Especially if you're out there working. You're contacting guests, you're contacting people, especially if you're in a public service, especially if you're a coach, you're connecting with people all the time. And those are the little things that make the difference. And like I said, I see people get farther and farther away from interacting with waiters, waitresses, people that are just passing by, even at the mailbox. People don't talk at the mailbox. If you still have a community mailbox, people don't talk anymore. Literally, you can brush shoulders with somebody and they'll act like you didn't even exist. So that's a lot of relationships that we continue to need to work on. Not face buried in the phone. I use my phone a lot. I love the technology, but I put the phone down. Good morning. How you doing? Back to my phone. Or if a conversation ensues. So yeah. So do you see that as being, in your life? Are you making those contacts? Are you making connections with people you come in contact with on this so-called, where in theory you don't have to? I guess society thinks, yeah, you don't have to. So are you, everyone out there collectively, are you making the effort to connect with these people out there? Don't be shy.
I'll say, as a cashier, since the beginning of this pandemic,
Mhm.
I have truly felt like my role has been more important than anyone can comprehend because of the presence of a bright light in a dark place.
Yep, absolutely.
And connecting with people and breaking them out of their funk and making eye contact with them and how are you doing, what's the best part of your day, engaging them in some way that helps them understand they matter. Many people have complimented my way of being, and you're the most happy cashier I've ever met, and it's just
And
like,
how has that changed? Like, look a few months back, right? Look at the complete theory. Even now you're radiating telling this. So think about before this happened, or before it was at this level, because right now you're radiating just from that basic human contact. We crave human contact.
for sure. Yeah, before March, I had a pre-COVID quarantine like lifestyle where I was teaching English online to kids in China, and I started doing some mad science stuff. So I was with a bunch of kids for, a class. And then I had a gym membership, and I, had my grandparents that I helped out a lot and a few friends, but largely my circle was just very small and limited. And so I understood the value of going into a grocery store and blessing the cashier. So when I get to be the cashier and pass those blessings on and snap people out of their funk, it was interesting. There was a professional that came through my line, and I say that because he very much looks at himself as that, and he's a bit high and mighty. And so it was interesting because I could tell he was completely out of the moment. He was completely in his head. He was miserable. His energy was prickly. And it was like he was coming through my till, and he was upset that he had to wait, that somebody had to pack before I could get started on his order. And so I just looked through the plexiglass into his eyes and just nodded and brought him back into the moment. And then he's like, do I know you? I'm just like, no, we're just here. And we had this moment. And so anyway, I have these moments with customers all the time, but he had to come back in and get some more ingredients for his pizza and left his business card that, let me know how professional he was. And so we had a conversation after the fact, and he's just like, did we have a moment? And it was just like, yep. But for me, it was a moment that I share with anyone that has a heart. And
That's our human existence. Yeah, but we collectively moved away from that.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, so you brought back my point right to the forefront, because that's exactly it. And so we can have those moments on a regular basis. Because think of, in the grocery store, you can contact with X amount of people. Like I said, even in a minimal COVID, we're still connecting with people. We're still moving about a little bit. So we're still, whether it's 10 people, 5 people, we still can make an impact. And guess what happens when you connect those 5? It's like it's connecting you, because now you're sharing a positive energy. Like I said, your energy has changed completely recounting the story. And I'm sure that guy has his story that goes with it, whether he's telling it or not. He's got his internal story. Yeah, and that's the beauty of this. And I deal in security as well. So I deal security. So I deal with a lot of aggressive and very important people at high-end stuff. I do high-end hotels and high-end events. And so people are aggressive and have issues, and they drink in, and they have, there's men, there's women and drinking. Anytime you have men and women and drinking, guess what happens? Chaos. And so I will use the whole, everyone understands the whole, art of judo and all that kind of verbal judo and stuff. And that's a coin word, but truly that's how you diffuse situations. And so I had this one very aggressive gentleman. He was a foreigner, spoke little English, but he actually had a very cool, and I always go for the truth, because I don't lie to people, because then you lose credibility. Anyway, he had on a sports jacket, and I'm sure you've seen them, but it was a long sports jacket, as opposed to the one that comes to the regular waist. It came down to about his knees. And it's kind of a European cool thing. I thought it was very cool. And I had not seen one of them in quite some time. So I look at him, and he's acting like a jerk, and he's real aggressive, and he's agitating a lot of people with his machismo. And so again, the average person in my position would go up and try to meet him with a more machismo, or say, well, I'm in authority here. And all I did was I looked at him, I'm like, man, that's a cool jacket. Like, that is really cool. So I walked up to him and I said, hey, that is some cool jacket. Where did you get it? And so now all the machismo goes away. He's absorbing the compliment, and now he's actually thinking, and then we engage in a conversation that he's actually from Spain, and he bought the jacket in England, And yeah, I really like it. I said, sincerely. And it just changed the whole dynamics because of our, again, the relationship. Because I always think, what is the relationship I can establish? Am I going to try to be, again, the whole leader, the authority? You'll come in with authority, or just come in and crack the whip, or come in and say, this is the bottom line. And then, of course, machismo aggressive Joe is going to be, yeah, I'm ready for this. I'm up for battle. So it's things like that, that again, in the small relationships, and we meet people like that all the time that are aggressive and have issues and anger, and it has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to do with you when you cross them in the street or you see them driving in the car. And so I always look at those relationships are more important, because I could fuel that and I could make it worse, and then it's going to ripple to other people. So this, in case once that happened, it died. No one else was affected by his negative machismo attitude, because it died.
You brought him into the room.
Yeah, absolutely. I brought him into reality, because, and what happens, it comes, what you said before is the actual thing, which I always watch, the silence. People were silent because they didn't know how to address it. And I get that. So they were like shrink away and they become silent, because it's a bully concept. So how do we deal with the bully? They don't know what to say, because no matter what you say, the bully is going to have an aggressive response. Dude, calm down. What? You're telling me to calm down? So therefore they remain silent. And then the bully becomes more empowered, because everyone around him in his kingdom is silent. So yeah, absolutely. So I brought him back to the moment, back to the reality, and I broke the silence. And it was something that he was not used to hearing. And I see that all the time in their eyes, because I tell them stuff that they're not really used to hearing. And then another quick story about this very important lawyer guy was doing something stupid in the lobby, and I had to ask him to leave. And so then he's very aggressive. I was just matter of fact like this. And so he turns around and he looks at me and he says, and he does the finger in the face, the ultimate like insult, like, do you have a question for me? And I said, no, I don't. I said, you've already answered it. So now he's totally perplexed. He's super aggressive, like the whole animal, hairs up. He's ready, showing his teeth. And I said, no, you already answered. He said, what question did I answer? You didn't ask me anything. I said, no. I said, you did with your actions. I said, I was wondering what kind of man would do what you did. I said, and the answer is a simple man. So he looks at me and he literally, if it was a cartoon, the head would blow up with smoke. And he actually goes like on a rant, like, who are you to call me a simple man? Who do you think you are? And it literally just like diffused him, because he like blew his steam over nothing, and he's like just going on like, you're simpler than me. I'm an attorney. I'm important. I'm not a simple man. I can't believe you accused me of being a simple man. I just calmly stood there. And then he literally just like a 2-year-old had his tantrum, had no substance, no teeth. He's fighting that. And then he literally just looked at me and just walks away. Just like diffused, walked away. So it's the same concept. You just have to look at that relationship. Obviously he's got issues. We know that. But again, he's being him. So the inner warrior, the peace, we have to deal with those people. And those people, again, like you were saying, guess what? They're in positions of power. They're in positions in our governments. They're in positions in world power. They're in positions of high finance. They're in positions of making major decisions. That's who these people are. It's not just the Joe on the street. It's not just, Harry that's working a job that doesn't impact a lot of people. So that's why, again, the silence has to stop. And again, you can't do it with fists raised. We're not equipped to fight the government, any government. There's uprisings and things of that nature, but collectively, we're not able to just take up arms at this point in the game. So you have to raise a voice in creative ways. And again, this is part of that, just talking to each other and bringing it to light and saying, hey, we're not going to be silent anymore. It's just like with the bullies in school and at work. I've encountered training people that work in very prestigious corporations, law firms, and scientists, and there are crazy bullies in there. I'm like, whoa. When I first started teaching at 20 years old, I didn't know this. I didn't know that corporate world had bullies. I was naive. I had a happy thought in my head. I thought that was at high school, the bullies went on. I didn't know they continued to be bullies. But of course, common sense now as an adult, I'm like, yeah, of course, they don't just fade away. Some of them might grow up or mature, but yeah, those people in high school or middle school go to high school, college, corporation, they become successful because they're aggressive and they get their way and they push their way to the top of the boardroom. Yeah, so the bullies are still out there. And again, the more silence you're about bullies, guess what? The more power they get.
And also, as part of that, bullies do a lot of projecting. And so we really need to understand that when someone feels threatened, their armor can oftentimes start as verbal diarrhea. And there was a phenomenal illustration or analogy of the law of the garbage truck that I remember reading years ago, which talks about how people are driving through their days like a garbage truck, just getting piled on with drama, trauma, pain, disgust, disturbing downward emotions. And throughout their day, they're just getting so full of all of this energy that needs to move, because that's what emotion is, energy that's meant to move, that they've been storing up, and then they dump it on you if you don't move. Because we have roots, but we're like trees, except for we're not planted in one spot unless we choose to be. It's like what Jesus had said, pick up your mat, move. Like, you're not bound to the earth in the same way that something built in one space is. Although we are operating within the concept of an apartment building with our emotions as the way that determines what level of perspective we're looking at life at. So, or how we're looking at life, and what floor within the high rise of emotional awareness we're actually approaching the issue from. Like, if we're in the very basement level of depression and powerlessness, we're just looking up at the one that's going to persecute us and dump all of their garbage on us, and that we're so messy, and all of that we take personally, because now we look like crap because all of their crap's on us. And so we then shame ourselves and need to go hide and go wash and all of this. But it's just like, what if we actually just realize, it's like, hey, I just felt a droplet, this doesn't look good, let me get myself out of here. Let me avoid actually being in that spot of feeling so helpless we're frozen in place, where we don't know how to move because it's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, like Tim talked about in his presentation in the first Inner Child Peace Summit that we did. And I broke into 3 parts. Listen to part 1 and you'll hear his presentation about the 4 processes of change and actually needing to correct the part of us that thinks we can't move. It's like, how do we actually become malleable and move with this moment, and understand that a projection doesn't need to be taken personally. We just need to understand how to burn away the things that people say that don't fit or sit within the kingdom that is ours.
And that's the true essence of the inner peace. And again, that's what people often don't see, that they think that the inner peace is very active. People often think mistakenly that inner peace is just this kind of no action. No, it's quite the opposite. It's a very kinetic, active ingredient, and so it's kind of swaying and moving. So if people try to dump on you, you don't accept it. Like you said, you literally physically move, or you can emotionally move. If you're in a spot, you just emotionally say, I'm not going to accept this, and then you literally move that attention. And the bullies, in their essence, they sense that and they move on. Because it's like, gee, how does this person find the person that they're going to bully? And again, it's nothing. And I have a lot of time, I'm sure Tim as well, you work with people that have been bullied, because then that adds, like you're saying, that adds more guilt to their situation. But you have to explain to them it's not necessarily your fault. You have action to take, but the bully picked you specifically, and he's taking your weaknesses. So again, you work on the emotional elements of saying, no, I don't deserve that. I don't need to be treated that way, even though it's a cycle that I've maybe been in. So yeah, the bully will, once you put up a stronger front, and everyone thinks it has to be the fist. No, that inner peace, that inner warrior is stronger than any physical movement we can do. Because the bully, and I tell this to everyone, the people who are bullies, it's twofold. They either develop the physical strength to back it, or they're physically strong to begin with, and that's what works for them. When you're a big kid in 4th grade and you bully every other kid because they're twice your size, guess what? That's based on your physical stature of being a physical, intimidating presence. And so occasionally you'll get a small, slight person that does it because they have a lot of other issues involved. But the majority of people have a physical presence, and that's what they use. Whether it's law enforcement or whether it's politicians, they tend to be very strong and very aggressive people that it feeds their head that they can get away with this. But again, your silence is going to feed that your inner peace, which is stronger than their aggression any day. That's been proven throughout history. Gandhi's proved that. Martin Luther King has proved it. That their inner peace and that resistance. People think, oh, you're peaceful, you can't be resistance. It's like, no, we're very strong, and we're going to hold to this point, and we're going to hold to peace for everyone and kindness and love. And then that love comes out powerful over this physical aggression and other emotions. People often get the flip side. We're talking about regular people, not educated people in the emotions, but people always think, well, emotions is a lot of negative. And so they focus on that. They don't realize that there's so much power in emotions. There's so much power. To me, it's even more powerful than the negative. And again, that's what gives us our soul. That's what gives us our inner peace. That's what gives our connection to the eternities, is that positive emotion is so much. Otherwise, we'd all be in a negative dump. So the battle within us, there's lots of different examples of battles within us, but our positive emotions are so much more powerful than the negative. When you extend love to somebody, or even kindness, again, getting back to your story, that kindness, that emotion that it's exchanged through kindness, it's explosive, powerful.
There's a saying, or there's a story about fear walking through the dark, and they're in the middle of the desert, and they're exhausted, and they're ready to take shelter, but it's a dangerous land, and so they're trying to do their best to keep themselves going. And then suddenly fear sees this house in the middle of nowhere. It's a farmhouse, and there is light on the inside of it. And so fear goes and knocks on the door, and love answers, and no one is there. As the light streams out, the darkness disappears. And then we understand that fear and love cannot coexist in the same space. When we introduce love into the space of our own heart, fear has no place to fit, because it is only false evidence appearing real. We've heard Wayne Dyer say that, and probably someone before him started it, and it was just misattributed to him. But however it goes, there is no original idea. Everything is just a different way of presenting the same thing in a different package with a different ribbon. But ultimately, inner peace, when we actually get back to it, it's the part of us that's just able to observe instead of react, that is able to be creative, that is able to understand the power of our thoughts and the power of saying, okay, this is the realistic evidence appearing legit in tomorrow's yesterday that today's reality may be. But our present results are only ever a reflection of our past level of awareness of our potential. It is our future that is based on what we do in the present moments that were present to us for us to do with as we please. To allow our free will to be what chooses the action and influences the outcome. And that we understand that when we positively qualify the opportunity that came to us, that good karma then winds up in the causal body that is like this giant vortex, which Abraham Esther Hicks oftentimes speaks about. And that vortex is literally the space that we can access mentally and then bring into fruition by allowing that God source to then deliver our intention back to us through the people, places, and things in our life. But if we misqualify the opportunity that comes to us, it winds up in our electronic belt. And these are teachings from the Ascended Masters. Particularly Saint Germain, and I was literally sent a video this morning from Azrael, who introduced me to Michael Seegers, who you've maybe seen some of the videos we've done, and we'll actually be doing another tonight about the chart of the I Am Presence. And ultimately, these teachings about the causal body and then the electronic belt that contain all of the unjustified negative karma, ultimately, that is what keep us bound to this cycle of repetition of life. But the thing that we have an opportunity to do while we're here is actually to become ascended masters ourselves, where we bring down the corona, which is the gaseous auric field around a sun, and to realize that we are the SUN incarnate here as the God sparks who are creative co-creators that are able to bring into existence whatever we put our attention to, which is why there is so much negativity out there, because the 3D matrix that is currently ruling things and that is trying to take away our freedoms, ultimately that is fed by fear and anger. And if they can keep us angry and divided, they can conquer us very easily. Because as I oftentimes ask, how do you win a war? Divide and conquer, and then come up and clean up what they haven't done themselves. Because the truth is that what's happening right now, as you may have seen the meme that I saw that brings this into this conversation now, about the metaphor of the black and red ants in a glass jar that coexist peacefully and harmoniously together and enjoy one another's presence, maybe, or the contrast that having a different color rub against us at times offers, until suddenly the jar is shaken and then they're attacking and killing one another, because clearly contrast means danger. But who's asking, who's shaking the jar? And if we actually understand how relevant that is to the situation we find ourselves in as a collective right now, then we can start saying, okay, well, the jar is being shaken, and there may be different hues all around me and the people that are in my circle, both in person and then virtually too. And ultimately, I'm just going to do my very best to be peaceful regardless of the glass shaking or not. And when we can do that and we can embody that, and then we can offer that to the people that we impact through a glance, a lingering look, maybe even, that just makes that person snap out of their not now moment that they are trapped in and come back to where they have the power. That's an absolute gift. And it's so simple, maybe not easy until it's become a practice, but it's so simple, it's overlooked.
And that becomes the obstacles to relationships, because just as you stated with the ants, great example. I've never heard that one before, but people are like that. And I've shared this quite a few times because it's very relevant to me. Again, it's like lots of behavior that occurs in high school is self-induced, and people bring it with them for life, unfortunately, because it's not forced upon them. With that, I say that I've done, like I said, hotel stuff, and you walk into the break room and everyone wears different uniforms, as you know, within the hotel establishment. You got front desk people, you got marketing people, you got housekeepers, and all wear very distinct uniforms for that reason, to separate them. And so you walk into the break room, and guess what you see? You know, all the housekeepers sitting together, all the engineers sitting together, all the marketing is sitting together, all the front desk people together, the pool, and the list goes on. You know, there's 50 departments, and in this break room, 50 groups have voluntarily isolated themselves from everyone else. And so what happens is it's the isolation, it's the silence, and then that breeds distrust. And so the way I always look at it, I would walk through that room. To me, it was like going to a buffet with all of my favorite foods. I would walk from table to table and talk to people and interact with them. And I understand why they went, because guess what? The housekeepers predominantly Spanish speaking and Mexican. And so they felt comfortable together. So I get it. Engineers, guess what? They're a type 2. But with that, they isolated themselves, saying we're engineers, we do engineer stuff, which is very limiting. And then it causes discontent for other people, because the engineers would complain to me and they say, well, the front desk people don't like us because we're what? Engineers. And I'm like, no, they don't like you because you've isolated yourself from them and they don't know you. And so I would walk around and I would actually bridge the gaps. And it's always very easy once you do that. We had a housekeeper whose son was going into, the police academy. And I had one of the engineers whose son was going into the police academy. Guess what a bridge of conversation that was. Once they got going talking about their kids, oh yeah, my son, oh, same. Now they have a shared experience. And guess what? There were a whole lot more shared experience, because their kids were the same age, and then they worked in the same place for 10 years, never spoke to each other because they never bridged the gap. So it's definitely what you're saying, the divide and conquer, because everybody is And again, it's society put it in place to begin with. I get that. When you're young, you kind of like, there's the boundaries. And then we accept that and we put ourselves, because the hotel didn't say housekeepers have to sit together, but people develop a comfort level. So the essence of the relationship is, like I say, the small connections to me is what become the big connections. Because if they begin to talk to each other, then they can break the social boundaries that occur when they go back home or when they go out. And I would see people that work together for 20 years, and I'd say, did you ever go to their home? And they were like, no, they're a pool person. It's like, that's truly their answer. Like they truly are ingrained with that they work at the pool. So how could they go to their home and socialize with that? Because the boundaries follow that. They have a limited socialization at work. And then because they're a pool person and they're work at the bar, then they can't possibly have any personal interaction. And so again, I always find that very amusing and sad, because why? Because you work in this section, don't you have people in common? And I'm sure you see that in the grocery store as well. Like some people that work back in the butchers, they might be like, we're butchers, we're a professional, we're like a craft, and we have skill. Maybe, I don't know if it's Canada unions, but in America they unionize. So we're like a union, we have our brotherhood, and we can't talk to the mere stockers. Oh, you unload trucks, you're a truck unloader. It's like, oh, you work front customer service. And so it's like all of these boundaries, but communication, not being silent, is how you bridge those gaps and how you develop relationships. And then those relationships lead to other relationships that you wouldn't have normally had. And then another quick version of that, and I share this with you, Larsa, people always say, well, how do you talk to so many different people of different ages and different categories? And there's always a commonality. And I said, I'm a 50-year-old man. My friend brought her 4-year-old son over to another friend's house. He walked into the room. Again, what am I chatting up a 4-year-old about, right? And if it's not going to be in a creepy category. He walks in, he's got on Spider-Man sneakers, Spider-Man shirt, and a Spider-Man hat, right? Guess how hard it is to strike up a conversation? Guess what we talked about? Spider-Man. So it's not always going to be that neon sign, but it could be something someone's wearing. It could be a chain they have on their neck, like an interesting oh, that's a pretty piece. Oh, yes, this my grandmother gave to me. And then, bam, all of a sudden, your differences are gone. So we didn't say, oh, well, we're talking about Spider-Man from a 4-year-old perspective and a 50-year-old perspective. And then I switch gears and I introduce Batman, because I'm more of a Batman fan. So this now he's engaged, because now he's got to defend Spider-Man, And of course, I know that you don't wear all that Spider-Man gear and not be willing to get the warrior going. And so I said, yeah, I'm more of a fan of Batman. I said, Batman's just cooler. He's got the belt, he's got the car. Spider-Man's really got nothing. What? And then he's 4-year-old brain is engaged. You can see it firing. There's nothing better when you can engage somebody's brain. You literally see it like, and so there we are. We're engaged in a conversation. And his mother knows me well enough, so she's just chuckling. She's like, you always get him like riled up in conversation. She said, and 4-year-old, they don't bother talking. They're like, whatever, adult. I'll be over here. So that's how you can bridge gaps to truly develop the relation. Then looking at that, if I'm communicating with a 4-year-old son, guess what that does with the relationship with my friend who's his mother? It's simple, but it's not, because it's complicated because we make it complicated. So of course it increases our relationship and our bond, because I've taken the time, which again, I don't think of it as a burden, but people don't. So I just took a minute to talk to her son. So of course she's like, oh, he's a good man. He's nice. He's kind, which in essence might be true, but it's just all of that comes across just because I said, hey, absolutely. You like Spider-Man? And sometimes it's that simple to make people think you care. Like, hey, you look good today. Hey, are you okay? You don't look the same. Even that can bridge this gap between coworker and acquaintance and someone you see in the park to all of a sudden. So like I said, I spend so much more time looking at those almost peripheral relationships, because everybody knows you're married, your boyfriend, your spouse is your family. Everybody puts all that energy in that. That's just kind of intuitive, or a society mandates that. And then we lose track of everything else. But that's where, to me, where the real importance lies, where the strength is, because I generate strength when I go out into the room and there's 20 different groups, because I'm pulling from every group.
You're connecting. You're being
out to every group. Absolutely. And they're not.
You're the web. We are the ones that create the web. It's like every single one of us are beacons of light in our area. We have been strategically placed around this world in order to make sure that there is a candle for someone to see in the darkness and reach for. We are that. You who watches this right now, whenever that now moment comes for you, if not live with us now, you are that candlestick, that beacon, that spider that ultimately connects us all. And if we can just understand that our belief systems are the boxes that we put definitions into, and that our box about God is the biggest box to be mindful of in the end, because if we don't fit within that box, then it's going to be very difficult for us to drop those walls and connect with others, because we need to protect this box and this God to be better than anyone else's God, better than Batman. My God is like Spider-Man, and my God is best, and so you better believe in my God or you're gonna go down, because I don't care about his belt or his car, I just like my God, right? And it's like, it goes from like a 4-year-old and 50-year-old conversation to being a battle between belief systems that ultimately leave both inner children really wounded and angry and unrelatable, because it's all about resonance. That's what the inner acronym is about. And if you're on Spider-Man and I'm on Batman, there is a different level of connection that is not being hit right then. But in the moment that you say, you know, however you want to just even it out, it's just like, however it goes, I like you, regardless of who you believe in. And then we can say, okay, so then God gets to have those walls dropped. And then those walls become like the webs that we can walk over top of as bridges to each other. And to say, we don't have to have the same beliefs. We don't have to have the same hue to our skin. We don't have to have the same of anything. We just have to have the willingness to be open, to connect, to understand that everyone comes with an agenda. Some people know their agenda. Other people have an unconscious agenda. Others have no agenda seemingly at all. They're just running with you and hope you have an agenda, because then there will be something to go with. But we have to really be mindful of what I feel like Richard has referenced a few times, is the difference between the faces and the masks that we wear into the world. And I don't mean these ones that represent conforming to the narrative that says there's something to fear, and turning us into patients ultimately is what I believe these represent. And if these had hinges, then it would just be the masked face. But I mean the masks that we wear in public, private, personal, and professional spheres. And there is a lot of this in all of those, because there's so oftentimes we don't feel like we can say what we want, or we won't fit in. And as someone that has been a fringe dweller most of my life, because I may come into a group for a time and then I'll find the individuals within that group I connect with and resonate with, and build the relationship individually with the individuals, rather than try to conform to belong to the whole group, of which there's oftentimes personality issues when you have a dominant personality that doesn't understand or didn't understand so much as what I do now about people's need to protect what's theirs, people's need to defend their pittance, so to speak. Just, this is mine and you can't touch this because then I'll run out. And so it's very much being mindful that people treat this as their family, as their job, as their money. People are protecting. And when they're protecting, they can't relate to you anywhere outside of what they're protecting, and they don't want you in there. So ultimately, you're a threat just generally being present, because you challenge them to look outside of the thing that they only want to focus on.
You know, one of the comments, Laura, just real quickly, it's Adam West. I'm sorry. It's Adam West. That's nice, but it's Adam West. It is Batman. The other thing,
again, that one starts so much dialogue, and that the beauty of you weighing in again. Now all of a sudden, that takes on a whole new life of conversation. So that's the beauty. And yeah, it wasn't confrontational. So going back to it wasn't confrontational. So again, it's kind of a man thing, I guess, and women too, but especially it's not confrontational. It's just kind of like fun banter. It's a fun banter.
Yeah, one of the things that I've done, which is and does still drive my partner and previous partners crazy, is the not now moment of clerks at the cashiers. They are in normally this robotic question: how are you doing today? How are you today? Yeah. How are you today? How do you today? And my answer is sexy, thank you. And at which point that instantly snaps them out of their robotic questioning and creates connection. And and anybody could simply just go at any cashier whenever they ask, just say, oh, sexy, thanks for asking. And it's really a cool experiment. Or you can take it to that next level and actually just say, wow, thanks for asking. You know what? I was really super depressed when I woke up. It's been a real hard day for me. And all of a sudden that the person doesn't know how to respond, how to connect, or how to react to that because someone's actually being real.
And they're looking for that pat response in their brain because they have a Rolodex up and they're like, doesn't compute.
And it one time, to much dismay of my partner at the time, I said, I'm fine. How are you? She goes, oh, I'm great. And I'm like, whoa, why would you lie to me? I'm just I don't even know you. Why would you lie to me like that? And she looked at me, and in just a split second, she said, I'm having the hardest day of my life. I'm just on the verge of breaking down from tears. I have 10 minutes left in my 10 minutes left in my shift, and I just have to make it through to the end of the day. That's all I got to do. And, I said, wow. I said, you know what? I said, hun, we've all been there. We've all had those moments, and you're not alone in that. And you know what? Today, it will end at midnight, and tomorrow starts a new day. And I said, so hopefully tomorrow you have a better day. She goes, I'm hoping. And she goes, and thank you for talking. So there are these moments that we have when we can actually break the not now moment and create an authentic moment of connection, regardless of where we are or who we're talking to. And yeah, it may be a little bit upsetting for our partners that aren't used to being outspoken in that manner. But again, one of the other things you were talking about on the cliff, on the edge of a cliff. If I went onto the edge of the cliff, I would go, oh, and the nervousness would come up. If my nephew did that, he would go, woohoo, base jumping. Whoa, let's see what we can do. Yeah. So we must understand that these are our own personal ways of looking at things. And Dr. Lisa Barrett, when she's talking about these emotions and feelings, they're actually not emotions and feelings, they're predictions. They're actually predictions. They're coming from our own internal things. We create these emotions, we create these feelings, we create these responses. And like I said, if I'm there and my nephew's there, we're at the same place, virtually experiencing the same scenario, but the way his body would react is completely different because his predictions are fun, excitement, fun. Fun and fun and fun. And mine definitely would be the complete opposite of that. So it is an interesting way of how we can take a look at what we take personally. And when we do take something personally, remember that who you are taking that personally is not who you really are. Because who you are is truly divine, powerful, and part and connected with the wholeness. And none of that could ever be judged by anything other than truly amazing. So sometimes we do forget that that's who we are when we take things personally.
Oh, absolutely. And it popped into my head when you were talking about the predicting and the projecting. And I work with people in the corporate world, and it often happens where they have a situation, might be a work condition or conflict with another employee. And I state, which is always the first, I said, why do you not go talk to your boss? And so they do is exactly what you're saying. They said, well, if I go and talk to my boss is going to say A, B, C, D. And so they already have this program, and it's actually to their detriment conversation in their brain. And it's like, and I let that resonate for a second. I'm like, okay, they very well might say that. We don't know for sure, but why don't you give them the opportunity? Why don't you just go and present your situation and give them the opportunity? And then here are some responses to A, B, C, and D that you can give them that can be productive and that can be a fruitful communication. And I said, again, you can walk away with no resolve. I don't know that. And we never know that because that's not our role. We can't project onto someone what they're going to do or say, especially if they're a boss. But yeah, so funny you say that. It's like always amazing that people really have this detailed, because they gave it a lot of thought. They stayed up at night and they've really had this great conversation. And what a good friend of mine, who's a mentor of mine, says, he always says, watch your language. And I think that applies to that concept, but especially when we talk to ourselves. We have to watch our language. We have to watch how we talk to ourselves. And I'm like, wow, maybe your boss is going to be that harsh, but man, you really got them like just slamming you down every step of the way. And then we do that to ourselves often. That's not the only example. We kind of self-sabotage a lot, unfortunately.
We teach people how to treat us.
Yep.
And we do it by the standards that we project with the words that we say, the thoughts that we think, the actions that we take, the actions we don't take. We prove it to ourselves and others by the quality of results that we have. And it's also important, and we're all aware of this, but ultimately higher quality lives have higher quality problems. It's just like, we're always going to have problems. We're always going to be with people that maybe don't get us, which is why today's summit has been about the relationships we have with others and also the one we have with ourselves, so that we can call ourselves back present, so that we can really be in the moment, so that we can be in the flow of what needs to happen, so that we can really be here now. And that being said, we are at nearly an hour and a half into this gathering, and just because we've put the time frame as being 2 hours doesn't mean we need to fill it. If anyone else doesn't have a contribution that you feel would be especially valuable about today, your takeaways, or maybe even a gift that you came here with that you feel would be an important insight to offer those who will listen to the replay, since evidently I didn't hit the proper button to live stream to Facebook. So everyone will have an opportunity to tune into this at the same time when it's posted after editing. So my apologies if you were looking forward to that when you see this later. But that being said, this is going to be the final segment of tonight's session. And it's really an opportunity, and the reason that we've set this up in a summit format is to give us all the opportunity to share what's on our heart. Jesse Ferguson says, I think it's just perspective. Look at the world positively. Easy. Easy and simple are not the same. That is simple, but when we're in a challenging circumstance, is it easy? Always. Not necessarily. However.
No. No. You're right.
Not always, no. But absolutely, it is a fantastic perspective to have, to be able to look at the world positively and to be able to find the positive part of life. Like, Jesse, you were in an accident when you were 17 that completely changed your life. That It changed everything, everything. And you're still choosing to see life from a positive perspective. Hmm? It changed everything. It changed your ability to move your body and to be able to speak, and yet it's simple. I think it's just perspective. Look at the world positively. Simple. If you don't see the world positively, how will the world see you? Absolutely. And how do we want to be remembered? How do we want to go out of this life? And what memory do we want people to have of us, knowing there will be people that don't like us? You know, there will be family members that don't like us. There will be people that are offended by our willingness to be ourselves, by our willingness to see the light of the shadow, to find the silver lining. There will be people that are blatantly offended by our choice to view the world in a different way than they do, and that want us to get bogged down in victimhood. It's culturally acceptable. How do we bond with each other? How are you doing? Not bad. What do you mean you're not bad? Well, it probably means you're actually great and you just don't want to rub it in. So you just say, not bad. So you just kind of blend in and keep your head below the parapet. But what if we actually became the ones that gave others permission to be positive, to see the world in a great way, to harvest and bring out the best parts of ourselves, and who are willing to actually be truthful with somebody who asks for our perspective, and we don't just sugarcoat it, but we don't deliver it in a brutal way either. Because why is brutality required? Other than culturally, war is more accepted than love. It's like you can see bodies being blown up and throats being slit, but if somebody's making love or giving birth to a child, dear God, cover their eyes. What is that about? The cult you are. We all smile because we can relate. Tim?
Absolutely. Yeah, I just really appreciate the time to be on with you guys. I unfortunately do have to jump on another call. And so thanks very much, and we'll see you all again soon.
Brilliant. Thank you for coming tonight, Tim.
Pleasure, Tim. Thanks for your input.
Anybody else have anything you want to bring into this space before we wrap up the whole summit? Chantal?
I am are the most powerful words you will ever use. That's it. You are what you say you are.
Yes.
Make it good. Make it positive.
And give yourself permission to not be perfect. Give yourself permission to let it be enough as it is, to know I am and the power of that. I am that I am is the presence above our Christ consciousness. The Ascended Masters speak of the I am presence as being like the picture of God that floats above each of us, as if we're each these puppets that have a silver cord that connect to the Christ consciousness and the I am presence above that, that hover and remind us of who we really are. And it's like, if we actually remember the creative force of I am and the power we give anything we place after those two words, we understand the power of a command. Richard, you're going to say?
Oh, I think everything today was just, again, wonderful. We have, we set out to just connect, again, develop relationships. And I think we've done that. The hour and a half is a short time in life. It's a long time with commitments, but overall, it was definitely worth the investment because I think we've all connected. You know, even though people didn't speak, we're still here together. And so we're still making that next step in connections. And I think collectively, like we're saying, is that each of us have a responsibility to go out into the world and be our best self. You know, be you for you. And then once you do that, and again, it's not perfect, it's not the ultimate, it's not, you know, not everybody fills certain roles, but being you for you, you will bring the best you to society, to your family, to those who you come in contact with, and then that makes the world a better place. You know, so if we each put our effort into that, and a lot of times people don't for a lot of reasons, and so as long as we keep doing that, then people will look at us, they'll gravitate to us, and we'll have a definite impact on people. That's for sure. So sometimes it gets discouraging because we want to change the world and we want to fix everybody, but definitely that's not our role and our power. It might be someone might rise up and then all of a sudden they're impacting the masses, which people have. But yeah, it all started with their self and then a slight walk where people began to say, hey, they're making a difference. So we all make a difference, you know, even if it's to what we think in our head, a small amount of people, but those small people become exponential. You know, if you have a family, sisters, brothers, and they get married and then they have kids, and you marry, you have kids, bam, you know, it's already your impact goes far and wide. And then we become together as a group, and now exponentially, we 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people, then we have people that we're attached to, and we've created that positive energy to go out. And yeah, there's going to be people that are negative and negative forces, but that's life. You know, we know that. We already know that going into this. That especially the more positive we rise, the more negative is going to hit us. The old Asian saying, the bigger the tree, the stronger the wind. So very simple concept, but just stay the course.
I am so grateful on this American Thanksgiving to have each of you as fellow warriors. Bruiser, please.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll share a little bit from my experience. For I would say for the first 33 and a third years of my life, I was smack dab in the middle of all the societal noise that had been going on. And even as I'm 5 weeks away from celebrating the 5-year anniversary of my own growth journey, you know, I am still, and for those who are watching and are struggling with their growth journeys, even as I'm closing in on 5 years, I am still finding myself in the challenge of dealing with my old programming still in my head, not even triggered by noise, but just triggered by like old memories, and moving forward with my vision and still crafting my vision. I have been like the groundwork of my vision is in place. However, there's still a lot of like things that are being crafted, and I think a lot of it is just just being left up to the universe right now to really show me what my version of freedom and what I like to call the epic 5D adventure in life is. And you know, for those who are watching the replay, like even 5 years out, I'm still struggling with some things, and I've had to throughout my journey. I've had to pivot a lot of things. Like I thought by now I'd be well into the business I've been meaning to create, but things have happened, and I've adjusted myself to the point where I put the business on hold for the time being while I'm working in the gig and subcontractor economy full time. And I think it's actually been I've actually through that adjustment, it's helped me to realize that a lot of the decisions I've made to go on my growth journey have really been justified. Because if I would have stayed, guarantee my whole experience with the whole pandemic would, like, I'd be nowhere near like where I am now. So I just say to everyone that the decisions you make will justify themselves in due time. You know, it's taken me almost 5 years. It's going to take me a little bit longer to keep going, but as Richard just said, stay the course. And I'm gonna use a term that Laura is very familiar with. Like if you're doing that handstand, you're gonna find that tipping point eventually. Like I feel I'm getting closer and closer to my tipping point in my journey.
Good. I'm thrilled to hear that. And what a gift that you've had 5 years to marinate in the crock pot of personal growth and development. Because what's happening right now is that a lot of people that didn't want to be on a spiritual path are really being thrown into the frying pan right now. And it's like, this 2020 is the year all blue pills expire. So
Yeah.
we are going through that process of, we who have marinated in the crock pot are being called to step forward to help the ones in the frying pan know they can make it through this. They're just on a crash course, and unfortunately they're going to wind up bruised, bloody, and scuffed, but together we can make it out stronger. And we need to know that we're not alone, and that even though our plan and the divine plan often have a very different timeline, it isn't a reflection on what's possible. It only is a reflection of what we have been able to achieve up until this point, because every door that was smashed in our face was there to serve us. Even if it broke our nose in the process, it saved us from what would have been had we got what we thought that we wanted and found out it wasn't actually what we wanted at all.
Right. I agree. And it's gonna really bring out that fighter in you. I mean, granted, I did not think that over the last few months I'd be going to freedom rallies at our state capitol. Like, I did not think that that would actually be like, feel like I'd be like, I really never cared about politics before. And now I'm like, I now like knowing like who's in where and who's really fighting for us, and really like it's really exposed a lot. And I'll agree with you on your earlier post. The truth is going to come out. Unfortunately, a lot of people aren't going to be ready for it, but you know, for those that are, you know, like all of us on this summit, and all of us watching, you know, it's a matter of, you know, we're ready for the truth, you know, and whatever truth comes out, you know, for those who aren't ready for it, or those who are still trying to fight it, you know, just know which relationships are best for you. You know, if you feel like what's best inside, if you feel it's best to be nurturing to those people, perfect. At the same time, don't be afraid to cut people off from like so on social media or like anything like that. You know, if it's that toxic, you know, don't be afraid to let them go. I know that'll be happening here in the future, that I'll have to be letting people go, because you know it's just you know it's just that their energy is just gonna weigh me down too much.
Being mindful of our energy is essential, and Brian Escobar in the comments said can definitely relate to what Bruiser said. It is definitely a process, and sometimes it's more about our soul's timing than what the human aspect wants. I too have some projects that are on hold while others are moving forward. Meanwhile, I am learning and growing so that what's on hold can move forward more easily. It all becomes relevant when you commit. And like Bruiser, I think the important thing is that you commit, no matter how long it takes. Maybe some things need to be healed before we can come out into the spotlight more. It's like, it's better than having the deal, or it's better than having to deal with it when everyone is looking, like many celebrities are doing now who are being exposed. Sometimes it's better to clean up some things and then move forward so that it can flow. And the devil is the evil dressed up as good. It's like the devil comes bearing everything that we want. It's like everything we think we want, everything that we thought we needed in order to be enough, that's what the devil comes bearing. And we have to really understand that sometimes the things that we want were actually very devilish in nature, which means that we were protected from actually getting that thing. It's like this book that I always say rewrote me before everyone got to see it. If I had have released one of the 3 versions I finished and deemed not good enough, the world would have benefited some. And the world would have benefited a lot more than it did by allowing me to actually get that out, maybe. But by not putting it out and going through everything that I did to judge myself for not doing it and for not feeling like it was enough and for choosing the wrong people to help me in the process of getting it out that couldn't see my vision, because ultimately our vision is only brought into reality by us, and then people look at it and say, oh, that's beautiful. It's like, that's what I was trying to tell you all this time. I couldn't see it, I'm sorry. It's like they were just doing the best they could to support us, but they had nothing to go off of to understand the greatness that we were trying to birth. And it's like, we don't judge the mother who's like 6 months into her pregnancy, because we know that the law of gestation says it takes 9-10 months to grow a human being. And it takes a different gestation period to grow a duckling or a worm or a fly or a tree. It takes a different period of time to gestate anything. But anything worth doing generally is going to take us at least double the amount of time that we thought it would, and oftentimes even more beyond that. And the energy and the effort and the attention and the money that's required to back our dreams is going to oftentimes take everything we have. And if we can fully commit to that, and we can truly say, I'm willing, magic happens. And I hope that today you have got something that can spark some magic in your life. And what is magic but creative potential acted on? So I would encourage each of us to go off into this world for the week ahead until next Tuesday, when we will come together again for a evening summit of going within with some visualizations and processes and more conversation to gather as a people that are willing to see beyond the differences and to understand that at the foundation we are all far more similar than we are separate. And so on that note, may the peace be with you. Richard, final words?
Just one quick note on the goals. We have our goals, but the journey can be an essential, well, it is an essential part of the process. It grooms us, it teaches us. We go through trials and tribulations. So when we reach our goal, we have been prepared to come into our greatness, whether it's a business, a relationship, whatever it might be. Sort of like going from the East Coast to California. It's 3,000 miles. You can fly, bam, you're there. Or you can drive across the country, stopping in multiple states with multiple people. And then when you get to the other side of the country, it's going to be a completely different experience because you interacted and had experiences along the way. So keep that in mind, that the journey is an essential part of preparing us for our goal. And that's everything in life. You know, God does that for us, and us, you know, Spirit prepares us for what's to come.
Beautiful. Wishing everyone a phenomenal night, and we will have another Peace Summit. We will get that scheduled towards the end of December, but not necessarily wanting to overlap with another sacred holiday. So Richard, you can go off and enjoy your family, and thank you very much for graciously being with us and offering to co-host this with me. And thank you to every single one of you who showed up and everything that you contributed, whether spoken, written, or simply felt, is very much appreciated. So thank you, and blessings to us all. Have a great night, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.